VM or a server where Docker is running is a Docker host. So container orchestration means managing Docker containers or running on a bunch of Docker hosts. And this is done through Docker Swarm. Last class, we deployed microservice application with the Docker Compose. It is deploying on a single Docker host, right? But we may have to manage them on a bunch of Docker hosts. We have one EC2 instance. On this, we use Docker Compose to deploy. What if I have multiple Docker hosts? Multiple EC2 instances. All of these are Docker hosts, means where Docker is running. And on all these machines, we have to deploy some microservice applications or whatever. So how do we manage them? What is meant by managing the containers? Here, managing the containers are checking for their high availability of the containers, load balance the containers, scaling the containers, and many more. These are the basic features of container orchestration. There are advanced features of orchestration also. Advanced features of orchestration we shall cover in Kubernetes. Kubernetes, Docker Swarm, both are same, like both are container orchestrated tools, but Kubernetes is more widely used and more famous. Right? So Kubernetes is, like I said, very widely used, and we'll be learning all the advanced concepts in Kubernetes. Swarm is restricted for dev and test environments or small applications. And now what is high availability? High availability meaning, let's suppose I want to run 100 containers on these 3 Docker hosts. Okay. Suppose 25 are running here, 25 here, 50 here. For some reasons, this Docker host is gone, crashed, or shut down. These 50 will be started on some other available Docker host, like here 23, whatever be the number, right? Making it 100, right? So this is what is managing high availability. What may happen to the underlying Docker host? You will still have the high availability, means 100 containers, so that the application is not down and highly available. Load balancing here is load balancing of containers on the cluster. See, this bunch of Docker hosts is nothing but a cluster. Load balancing of containers means how many should be there on Docker host 1, how many on Docker host 2. This kind of thing is done through container orchestrator. Right? You don't need to mention like how many should be there on each worker node or else each Docker host. We need not tell how many should be there on first worker node, second worker node. This is taken care by Docker Swarm, which is called load balancing, auto load balancing of containers on the cluster. It will calculate the resources and accordingly deploy the containers. And then scaling. Today I have 100. Let's say tomorrow I need 200. That is easily possible through this container orchestrator tools. You can't sit and run Docker on 100 times, right? So those are all possible, which comes under container orchestration. So we shall create a Docker Swarm cluster. Cluster means a group of Docker hosts, right? Group of Docker hosts is a bunch of Docker hosts, right? We'll create a cluster. Bunch of Docker hosts means I'll take a bunch of virtual machines, EC2 instances, and we'll create a Swarm cluster. In that cluster, one machine will be working as a manager node. Others will be called as worker nodes. You can have any number of worker nodes. You should have one manager node at least. Manager node is like a leader which will manage the entire cluster, which will take care of all this high availability, load balance, and scaling. So it's a simple architecture. I'll take a VMs, I'll install Docker, they become Docker hosts, we'll create a Swarm cluster. Setup is simple, Swarm is easy to learn. It's almost like a Docker commands. Can I go for the cluster setup? Any questions here from anyone?
Yeah, I'm good.
Uh, can we have more than one master manager node in a cluster?
Yes, you will be having multiple managers because if manager goes down, entire cluster will go down. So, yes, you'll have
Okay.
multiple.
In that, in the if I have three manager, how the election process will be begin on what basis?
Depending on their high availability and all, that is again a different kind of architecture, how he was elected and all.
Okay. Any particular characteristics like they are
Some
highlighting it
of
or
them
no?
are like there, like their availability and all, and also how you configure them. Yeah, it follows a particular architecture.
Okay.
I'm creating three instances. I would like to use one as a manager and the other one as a other two as a worker nodes. So Linux to t2.micro, AWS key. That's all right. Linux to t2.micro. Launch instances. These are VMs. How to make them as Docker hosts? Cluster is a bunch of Docker hosts. How to make a Docker host? I'm just naming this as a manager. It's not a manager. You have to make it manager. I'm just naming them first. Worker. Okay, done. Now, okay, let's connect to manager. All the nodes we have, they are just VMs. This is going to be the manager. This is going to be the worker node. Okay, these colored ones are the worker nodes. Now let's connect to the worker node. Install Docker, start Docker. Okay, so now all the three machines, all the three Docker hosts are ready. Now, how to install Swarm or how to start Swarm? You don't need to install Swarm directly. Okay, whenever you install Docker, you can run your containers in Swarm mode, but you have to initialize Swarm. How to do that? So you have to go to the node, whichever you want to make as a manager. This is the one I want to make as a manager. Here you have to do Docker Swarm init, advertise IP address of the manager. Let's go here and the manager's private IP. This is the one. Okay, manager's private IP. Okay, so Docker Swarm is started. The Docker Swarm init advertise IP address. So this is the manager. Here it says, you do see current node is now as a manager. Like, okay, Docker node ls. Here, if you, all the commands you should execute from manager and it shows that it's a leader, means manager, done. If you want to add anything as a worker node, copy this token and run on all the worker nodes. It will be connecting on port 2377. You should open this port, or else what you can do is, go to security, add that port, or else I'm adding all traffic so that they can communicate. Done. Okay, now, yeah, see, timed out before node join. Do you see that? So already it has got added now. Now here also. Okay, now they got joined. You can see them here, Docker node ls. Yes, 3 of them were added. All the 2 are not managers. This is the manager. Cluster is created. That's all. Creating Swarm cluster. Is this much clear, everyone? Understood?
Yeah, got
Suppose in future, if I want to add one more host to the cluster, so then how can I get that token?
And this is the
Where it will
token
be?
you have to run.
Okay. Next month I want to join one more host. How to that time token will not be visible in the screen. Where can I get the token?
This is how.
Docker Swarm join token.
That will give you the token. If you want to add another worker node, this will give you the token to run to add as a manager. Here you can see. To add as a manager to the Swarm, this
Okay.
is the token. To add as a worker, this is the token.
Okay.
Good.
Yes.
So cluster is created. You can see them this way. Actually, you don't need to do anything on the worker node just to test our configurations or anything we were doing. Only running a token there, that's all.
Sitting in the inbound rule,
Hmm?
which activities, which node is attested?
Huh?
In inbound rule
Inbound rule
on the
2377 is required, but I have
okay,
added all the traffic.
all traffic means
All ports, I have opened everything.
okay.
Right. So now, okay, cluster is created. Now I want to deploy the containers. How do you deploy the containers? Here we deploy the containers in the form of service, like a Docker service create, name of the service, some name, and some image name. Let's say I would like to deploy some image as Nginx. Okay, and do the port forwarding. Let's suppose I want to forward 8,000, 80 of containers forward 8,000. Now, service is like entity or a bag which can hold the replicas of this Nginx. First time when you run Nginx service, my service will be created with one Nginx container. Later on, you can scale it. And this 8,000 is called, earlier this is called host port, this is called container port, right? Now this is called cluster-wide port and this is called host port. Cluster-wide port meaning you may hit any node on this port, you will see Nginx. You may hit any node on the cluster. Okay, any node, you will see Nginx. That's the beauty of clustering because this particular port will be open across all nodes in the cluster. Means irrespective of where your container is running. When I run this, your container might be started on any node, manager or worker 1 or worker 2. You need not, in a container orchestrator tools, you need not worry about where it is running. You should care about whether it is running or not, right? That's what is auto load balancing of containers. Let me run this. Service will be created with one container in it, which is from Nginx, Docker image. And it is forwarded to 8001. You will see the service as Docker service ls. Okay, see here it is forwarded to 8001, my service. So it's a container, right? But where is it running? You can see that also Docker service ps my service. So it will show you my service.1. Like I told you, right? My service is like an entity or a bag which will hold the replicas, and by default it will start with one replica of Nginx. It's running on this node. Which node is this? 81. 81. This one. See, it's on worker 2. Did you notice that? You come here and do Docker PS. Yes, it is here. Whereas you run Docker PS on any other nodes, no containers. That's how you check the containers, right? See, no containers. It started on worker 2. Did I tell anything it should go on worker 2? Did we give any instructions to get started on worker 2?
No, they
No.
started automatically.
We did not
from
do.
service.
That is what is auto load balancing of containers on the cluster. You need not tell where it should be running and you need not worry about it. Your concern should be whether it is running or not. Suppose this worker 2 went down, still it will be running on some other node. We'll see that also. But this is what is high availability and auto load balancing of containers on the cluster. But I don't see, okay, here it is. Okay, it's running on here. Now let's hit on 8001. Let's hit any node. Let's get the IP address of this manager. Is it running on manager?
No.
Still you are seeing Nginx. Is it running on worker 1?
No.
Still you see that as well. Obviously it is on worker 1 here also you can see. This is the beauty of orchestration. That's called cluster-wide port. That's why that's called cluster-wide port. This port will be open across. See, it's showing star dot. Star means all the hosts, all the nodes in that cluster. Clear? By now, you should be understanding the container orchestration features like high availability, auto load balancing of containers on the cluster, and so on. High availability, load balancing, scaling. First, let us do scaling. Here itself, you will see load balancing and auto scaling, high availability as well. Let me go to this one. Okay. So here, if I want to scale Nginx containers 5, you have to scale the service. Like I told you, right? They'll be inside the service. Docker service scale, my service equal to 5. See, it was scaling to 5. Docker service ls, only one service, but here you can see 5 replicas, and then Docker service ps my service. Okay, 5 replicas of it. Okay, 5 replicas. 2 are on worker 1, 1 is on worker 2, these 2 are manager. They were shared. Did we give any information how they should be shared? See, 2 on manager, 2 are on worker 1, sorry, 1 is on worker 1, another 2 on worker 2, making total 5. Correct? Got it, everyone? So how are they shared? Right? And this is what is scaling out, scaling up, scaling out, increasing the number, and they'll be shared across all the 3 nodes in the cluster. And the load balancing of containers across the cluster. Are we good? So what happens if any node goes down? Let's say this worker node went down. Will it have only 3 containers or what happens? It will start another 2 on other nodes and making it 5. That's what is high availability. Right? So you may shut down one node, you may remove one node, or else what I'll do, I will drain a node. Draining a node means it will be running, it will be active only, but it will not run any containers. Means it will not take any load. Like during maintenance state, it will be in off. Availability will be off. During maintenance, you can put it drain. Generally, manager node will be drained. Manager should be a dedicated node which will manage the entire cluster. Right? It should not be taking up any load. That's the best practice. So I'm draining the manager. Update availability. Update availability of manager. This is the manager name, host name. Availability, drain, and the host name. This is the one. So now you check the node. See, it is drained. What happens to the containers here? They were terminated, but what happened to the service? Docker service PS. Do you see here? This replica, which is on manager, is shutting down and it is starting on other available nodes. Do you see 2 of them? So which nodes it went to? See 3 here, 2 here, it went to worker 1. Total 5, high availability. Understood? This is what is high availability, load balancing and scaling of containers on the cluster.
In master, if we run Docker stats, will it show how the load in the other worker nodes?
Not in the other worker nodes, this is for individual. It will show here. Here you don't have any containers. You have to check on, it's a Docker command. If Docker install, you can check anything. Okay, here are the containers.
Okay.
Understood the basic features of orchestration, everyone? Any questions or is it clear? If you are there, please respond.
See, if the worker is in the cluster,
Hmm.
how can we start a node port mode if it is in the cluster?
Node port
How
mode.
can
What
we
is node
start
port mode?
service in the node port mode?
That is
Means
Kubernetes service. Here we are talking
oh,
about Swarm services.
in Swarm it is not possible.
This service is different from the service you are talking about in Kubernetes. There the
Okay.
service concept is totally different. Here service concept is different. Don't
Oh,
compare
okay.
each tool, okay? Each tool have their own architecture, their own components. The name may resemble same, but conceptually, functionality wise, they're different. Don't compare one component from one tool with another component in another tool. Here, service is
Okay.
a bunch of similar containers, like a replicas. It will hold the replicas. You can scale the containers via the service names, and yeah, service is a bunch of similar replicas, the replicas. Their service concept is totally different, and here you don't have different type of services, only service.
Okay.
Ritik, one
And this,
master is shutting, okay, and
One master
slave
is
also, no, master is shutting,
mm,
okay, and slave is also be, one slave is shutting. Then what's about the 5 by 5 to arrange that on the second slave or what?
Firstly, master is not shutting here. Shutdown is of that container. This particular third replica is shutting down. Master is
Yeah.
not shutting down. Master is still there. That's why I'm able to run the commands. This is master node. Okay. And your containers on that node is shutting down. And if master shut down, the entire cluster will go down. If master shut down, entire cluster will be dropped. Here master is not shut down, master is still running, and that particular container is shut down and it is starting on another node. Now please put your question again.
Okay. My the container of the master is shut down
Mm.
and slave also be, one slave also be shut down. Then how to
Slave shut
arrange
down
the
or
file?
containers on slave shut down?
Container on the slave shut down.
So say slave is still there.
Yes.
Mm. Master is there, slave is there, only containers shut down. Then
No, no. My question is that master container is shut down.
mm.
Slave container is one slave container is shut down.
Mm.
Okay. Then
Mm.
how to arrange that container?
How to?
Arrange means there are 5 container, right?
Mm.
5 by 5.
Mm.
So how to that one?
See, whenever
if
here, what did we do? This container shut down. Another container started on some other worker node automatically. See, the same third replica started on worker one. If a container goes down, another container beneath its place will be started on some other available nodes in the cluster. You need not do anything for it. That's what is auto load balancing and high availability.
Okay.
if the master itself is down means availability service itself is down.
Master shutdown means cluster is not at all there. Cluster will be dropped.
So in that case, you cannot a containers is not going to serve any kind of
Cluster is
replication.
not at all there, means entire cluster will be dropped, entire cluster will be collapsed. Nodes are not at all there, cluster is not at all there, then how come we talk about services containers? Everything will be dropped, collapsed.
Correct.
Here I just drained it. Okay, this is draining. Suppose I want to, okay, now master will not take any load. Let's suppose I'll scale it further. Docker service scale. Okay, you may increase it to 10. Say 10 replicas, but master will not take up any load. They'll be shared across other available nodes, worker 1, worker 2. See, nothing here. See, how many? 5. Here, it will be another 5. Okay, so total 10 will be there. Docker service, PS, my service. 10. Do you see all the 10? If you want to scale down, Docker service scale, let's say, this is how you scale down. But nothing on master because master is in the drain state. Scaling out or scaling in, reducing the number. Now there will be only 3. Still master will not have anything because master is in the drained state. Here 2. And on the other node it might be 1. On the other worker node.
Okay. In worker node, if I stop Docker service itself,
No, containers will not run.
Means that time, how the replica sets will work?
How?
Replica sets. See, suppose
Replica sets,
you
what
have.
are?
See, my question is like this.
Oh,
Now your replica set size is 3. Okay. So in worker node 1, 2 is containing, and worker node 2, 1 is running. Okay. Suppose by chance, if I stop Docker service in worker node 1, will the other container will start in worker node 2?
Docker service stopped means you cannot start, right? You cannot start. Other worker node will work. That particular
Other will work. But this load will
will not work.
move to second, will not work, will
Hmm,
not move.
will not.
So that time, but still master is running.
Hmm?
See, suppose go to worker node 1,
Hmm.
check the how many containers are running here.
Two containers
With
are.
PS. Okay, stop the service here.
Okay, you tell me I need
Docker
the service. Service is stopped here.
stop. In that scenario, how the replica sets will work? That is my
These
question.
replicas will be moved to other nodes again. This is not available, right? They'll be moved to whichever nodes available.
Okay, fine.
See, you are stopping Docker service is same like you are stopping the node. It is not
Correct.
available, right?
Correct. Yes.
Hmm.
How it will be useful in real time?
High availability. You need 100 containers. What may happen? It will make sure it will have 100 containers. You need not check on how many are there, right? Like if there, let's say a node is gone, it will run only 10 containers, right? What happens then if it is running only 10 containers, application will be down, not available, correct? So providing
Yes.
high availability. Okay, auto load by. You need not sit here and check on which of them are available, where you should run. You need not do this kind of planning. These are all the advantages in real practice. And I have
Okay.
drained. If you want to bring it active, yes, you can do availability active. It is back. Now it is ready to take the load, take the containers. If you want to delete the service, this is how you can do. Okay, gone. Docker service ls. You may start any service using Docker service create command. Docker service create some service name. Yeah. Docker service create, let's say I'll start it as web. Okay. PHP on the same one. Colon PHP. Each node will access this independently, possibly leading to different nodes running different versions. Could not be accessed as a registry to record its digest because see, you need to do Docker login. Let me do Docker login because it's a private image. Okay, here also. Here also you should do. Okay. See, it is 0 by 1. It is not started. Docker service RM web. Before doing it, Docker login. Okay, done. Now, no such image. Is this correct? Oh, I think, yeah, typo. One second, image name is incorrect. Docker.com. Registry name is incorrect. Repository. See, okay, correct. Only MVN private repos PHP. PHP is there, MySQL is there. Correct, right? Private repos, Java. And private repos PHP. No such image. The Nginx should be pulled on every machine. Let me do the pull and then run this. Could not be accessed to record it. Each node will have a different node version is preparing. No such image. Let me do one thing. Docker pull. Okay. It says service configured. Docker service ls. Yeah, it started finally. Docker service ps. Before that, where is it running? It's not running here. Okay, Docker service ps my service. Web, right? Service name is web. So it was running on some worker nodes 224. Okay. It is not here. Docker ps. Yes, here is the container actually. And the other one is here. No, only one container which is start on worker one, which is fine. Let me pull the SQL also. Also, let me pull it on this machine as well. All right, so Docker pull this time MySQL as well. Let us pull this image. We'll deploy that also as a service. Okay. Meanwhile, let's look into this. Here, we should be accessing on the same port, yeah, PHP, correct? Which is working fine. But how about the backend? Let us deploy the backend as well. These are all far advanced concept. Swarm is not much used, so you don't need this to this extent, but yeah, let's do it. We don't need any port forwarding here. And the service name is MySQL. And the image name is another service, right? You can have multiple services. Detected task failure. Why task failed? Let's see.
See, in the host file 99 line, you need to delete.
Hmm?
For that error,
Hmm.
in the host
Actually,
file
oh yeah, host file.
99 line number you need to remove. Then it will connect.
Okay. Actually, I
Fourth
was
terminal.
connecting to some other machine which is terminated. Okay. Docker PS. Docker service PS my service. Sorry. Docker service ls. List them. It is created, but see, container is not started. Have we set in the Docker file the environment variables? Is any environment variable missing in the Docker file? This is what I believe. Docker
See, you're,
service RM. I'm removing
you're
this.
downloading the image from the registry, but here how?
See what it will do whenever it's
But
running, it will search locally. If it is available locally, it will use it. Otherwise, it will start on, it will pull from the particular registers. I have already pulled it. The error is here actually I have set the I didn't set the password in the Docker file when I made this image. Okay, let me correct that here. Meaning not a correction, we can also pass the environment variables this way. Okay, what I'll do, MySQL root password. Set this variable. Okay, and then start the container. Only database set in the Docker file. I'm running the Docker file. I mean, the image is made from the Docker file where only database name is set, not the environment variable. Environment variable, this particular environment variable is mandatory. See, now it got started. Do you see that now? Good. So where are they running? Two containers, right? SQL is on manager and okay. SQL is on the manager and PHP is on the worker node. Are we good? Yeah. Now will they be communicating or not? Let's suppose I'll put some value. This is on 8001. It should communicate actually. MySQL is the service name I have given. Might be this is having MySQL name or service. Okay, let us see. They should be communicating automatically because what happens here is these are multiple services, right? Multiple services means containers, bunch of containers. They'll be in the same network, so they can communicate with this service name. Maybe this is not considered, or this Docker file might be older one. This is the SQL one. Let me check on PHP one. Docker PS. Docker service PS. Okay. Let me go inside Docker exec -it. This is the name of the container. Name of the container and the container ID is 4CF. 4CF bin bash. This is server name is MySQL, but it's not communicating with the server name. Server name should be this one, I think. It should communicate with service name only. Yeah, root password database set. Let me also check on that. Docker exec -it. The SQL container is 7F9 bin bash. MySQL -your root -p. Password is the one I have set. Use my database. Select start from EMP. -e set. They should be communicating automatically. Let me do one thing. Docker inspect 7F9. They will be in a bridge network.
I think volume need to be created, right, Preeti?
Volume is not mandatory, right? For them to functionality, it should not disturb. Actually, what happens here is all the containers will be running in a bridge network in general. But whenever you start in Swarm, all of them will be started in the overlay network. Overlay network is working above the bridge network so that containers on different hosts communicate. Here, I don't think they are working properly. What I'll do is Docker service ls, Docker service rm MySQL. I'm removing it. I'm removing web also. What you can do is, see, whenever you just start normally, all of them will be in the bridge network. By default, they'll be communicating. But when you put in ingress, when you run them in the swarm mode, everything goes to overlay network. But overlay, I don't think it's working. You can create your own network like Docker network create, and you want to type and create a network of type overlay type. Overlay type is which works above the default bridge network. The command is docker, network create -d means which type of network. Driver, D means driver. It's of overlay. Let's say the name is O1. You give any name, okay? So new network is created. This one, O1. Okay, now I would like to put all my services in this network, meaning Docker service create. Okay, first let me start. Okay, SQL is fine. So first let me start this, and this would be started in the default network if you do this. But I would like to start in my own network. So here you may add it, add the network flag. Network O1. Okay. Let it start. Similarly, PHP1 also will put in the same network. If you want them to communicate, you put in the same network. If you don't put in the same network, anyway, they'll go into the same network with the default network. Somehow it's not working, I believe. Let me check. I will start web also. I'm just trying to use the same command. This is SQL. PHP. Okay. Yeah, we need to add the network flag. Network. O1 is my network name. Sorry, it was inside. Okay. I think it's coming up. Docker service ls. Yeah, both of them were ready. Good. Okay. Now let me check from the browser first. Yeah. Do you see that? So you have to put them in the same network. I'll elaborate those things. Just give me a while. I just want to inspect on the Docker PS. Okay. Docker inspect. Earlier it was not showing overlay. It was showing something like overlay 2. But now 5TB. 5TB. Okay. Is it okay? SQL 1. F31. Yeah. Do you see that it was in overlay? Right? Earlier it was just showing on bridge, but now it was on overlay network. Of course, default is bridge, but this is not how it was earlier, right? Now they were in the same network, they were communicating. Got the point, everyone? And what are these things, like what is this overlay and all? Let me tell you. See, actually, forget about Swarm. Till yesterday, we were running containers, right? All these containers by default will go into a bridge network. Default network, it works like a secure, private, isolated network so that containers on the same host can communicate, right? These are containers. Let's say this is the same host. These are on the same host. They can communicate with the bridge. Now yellow ones are the host. I got other host like Swarm cluster. And now again, I have containers, right? This might be SQL one. Blue ones are the SQL ones, okay? SQL containers. Pink ones are the web containers. Now a container from here may have to communicate with a container on the other host, right? This one should communicate with this one or whatever, right? So how this communication happens? How can containers on different hosts communicate? That's where overlay network comes in. Okay, default overlay network will be created whenever you create a swarm cluster. This works above the host network, above the default network. Means, see, these are a bit advanced things. This is a host one, host two. They'll have their own networks, right? Overlay networks works on top of it, like an add-on. What is the use of it? It makes containers on different hosts communicate. Okay. So whenever you start multiple services, they'll be communicating by default because they'll be going into overlay default. That's a before functionality. But now I believe some changes might be there, some features might be changed. Default, it's not going to overlay. What you have to do, let's say I have two services, MySQL, PHP, they should communicate. I should create my own network of type overlay, put them in the same network so that they can communicate. Suppose I have third service DB or else third Kafka service. I don't want them to communicate. You put it in another separate network. Got it. If they are in the same network, they'll communicate with the service name. Service name is my service I have given. So they communicate. Understood. In Compose also, you have written a Compose service names. Do you remember that? Understood? Any questions?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
They are communicating with the service name if they are in the same network, which is of type overlay. You have to create overlay network and put them in the same network. If you don't put them, it will go to default network. They'll not communicate. You have to put this way. Network flag. Let's say you have third service which need not communicate here. You put it in another service. Always it's a good practice to create your own networks rather than going for default because you have to decide which one to communicate and all. Got it right, all of you? Again, this is Docker Swarm. Now you know the difference between Compose and Swarm. See, this is difficult to start services this way, right? I'm removing them again. Removing web, MySQL as well. No containers, no nothing. Now, if you want to have this microservice thing, you can start your Compose in the Swarm mode. Yesterday we have created Compose file, right? Yes, you can. There's a Swarm and Compose integration, which is far advanced. Yes, you can do that. Means you will run the Compose file here in Swarm mode. Compose integration with Swarm. These are all far advanced. You can just listen. That is also fine. I'm creating that file here, docker compose.yml. Okay. Yeah. Of course, 1 minute. This is the one which we used yesterday. Instead of you doing Docker service create each time, you can do this way as well. PHP. Okay. And how do you run this in Swarm mode? How do you run this Compose file? Is it Docker Compose up? We did not install Compose. Yeah, you don't need to install Compose. You have to just start. That's called stack mode. What we'll do is, again, the best practice, create some directory. Go to that directory. Copy the file from to this location. Okay, you have got the file. Now here run. There is a command called docker stack deploy and the compose file flag. You pass the compose file. Of course, it's in the same location. Give some name like stack demo. Stack is a set of services. See, it will start its own network, its own service, everything done. Now again, you can see Docker service, ls, they were all ready and good to communicate. This is another method and the advanced method of doing the things.
See, once you start the compose file in a stack mode, there also network came in a default.
Hmm.
First line, creating network stack demo default.
This one, but it has created of type overlay. It will work.
Overlay. So name itself is stack demo default instead of O1.
Yeah,
Okay,
because it will create its own network.
can we start the containers in a local host mode?
Localhost meaning?
Means if we start local host mode means there won't be any kind of IPs as basic communication will done in the Linux missions.
I did not get you, sorry. Like without IP address meaning?
See, if we, in a Linux mission, if you ping localhost means you will get a response, right?
Mm.
There will be separate network called
Oh, you
localhost.
mean this one? You mean this one hitting on the IPs of worker on the nodes? Instead of hitting this, you want to see on localhost kind of?
No.
Mm.
Go to any Linux
One
mission.
second, please. Let me finish my explanation. I'll take up your query. So yeah, they were communicating, right? I mean, they started. See? Perfect. Correct? Understood, everyone? You can also run the compose with a swarm this way. Or else you run separately, but you create your own network. Otherwise, when you do it with swarm, swarm will take care of all the networking, etc. Everything. Now, yes, tell me please now.
See, there are in network drivers there are three kinds: localhost, bridge, and overlay.
Where
Right?
is localhost? Where is local?
Host itself is.
Host, see, host network is different. Host network means not local host. Host network means they have their own network. This is another type of network. Bridge network is like they can communicate. It is like a secure network. Host network means networking of the container will be same as the host network. Host means here EC2. Whatever EC2 network is, containers also will be started in the same network. That's the meaning of it. Those are
Okay.
different network types.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay, you mean to say only there are three kinds of driver: host, bridge, and overlay.
Correct.
Overlay means
The one we created,
different.
which works about which is useful for containers on different hosts to communicate.
Okay. Bridge means within the same node.
Same node, but it will be in a separate network. Containers will be in a separate network.
Got it. Okay.
This is all about Docker Swarm. Actually, basics are enough. Means on Swarm, you have to learn about what is high availability, what is a container, what is a auto load balancing of containers on the cluster and scaling. These three features you have to know in Swarm. That's all. These are all advanced things. If you are interested, you can do that. Running services, creating your own overlay and all. Because like I said, Swarm is very less used. And for smaller applications, it was confined only for smaller applications. Why? Because of a lot of limitations it has got. What are all the limitations it has got? What are all the advanced features Kubernetes has got? That is for the next part. Like from Monday, we'll be starting Kubernetes, where you will see all the advanced concepts, including auto scaling and everything. So Kubernetes is more widely used because of its advanced and extensive features. So all of them we'll discuss in Kubernetes, which is more widely used. That is the agenda for the next class. Any more questions from anyone?
Prithvi, what is the command for? Please go ahead.
if comes a scenario wherein if the swarm cluster itself is down, wherein the master and the nodes are down, and, in order to cater the the service, in order to run the application, do you have a kind of backup swarm cluster?
We'll have multiple managers. So if one manager goes down, another manager will be there, which will take care of the cluster. It's not that all the workers, all the managers goes down, there'll be a backup, but there'll be multiple managers to maintain high availability.
And that manager is associated with the different set of nodes, or
It could be same or else it could be another set also. Any more questions?
After draining that node,
Yeah.
how to check that? How to identify it has been drained or I missed
Docker
that
node
comment.
ls, in the Docker node ls, there is an option, right? Availability it will show. There it will show like a drain or whatever. Docker node ls command will show. This one, not this one. It's stuck up. Docker node ls, there is availability column which will show availability of it.
Okay.
Docker node ls, this one, availability column. It will show drain. Earlier we have seen.
Okay.
Any more queries?
ma'am, considering this PHP demo application, it is the front end of the application, and MySQL is the back end. Ma'am, we have seen that there will be an application layer and the business logic layer and the database layer. Here, the PHP is being used is the application layer, right? The user interface layer.
Yeah.
What in case the business logic layer?
That these depends on the architecture of the application. Here we don't have any. I think you're talking about the architecture of the application.
Yeah, I am talking about the architecture of application. In real time, we have those kind of applications, right?
See, it's need not
Wherein you will be
necessarily
having.
or mandatory that you should have all those layers in your application. And also, I think you're talking about a different thing.
See here, everything is encapsulated in the front end itself.
It need not be necessarily all the layers present as per your architectural diagram. And we are not getting into the internal part of the architecture. We are having multiple services. We are deploying them as a multiple containers. UI and the backend we have got. See, yeah, I was just, these are the very old concepts and also the basics, right? And if you can check on it, like it says, in a perfect world, this layer would not contain any logic of business domain. It's not, means you don't see anything physically for business layer. That's all theoretical part, the architectural part. Wherever you are checking this topic, go dig in more depth. It will tell you that's not a physical layer. Or else you don't have it, like if your application is what is the business layer there? Separate layer you don't see as you see in the theory. Here, don't get into the architecture of application. As a DevOps person, you are not an architect. You have to understand what is the front end, what is the back end, how do you deploy them, how do you make them communicate.
In this the front end, we have seen the index.php and if it is a business layer, there will be controllers. In Java based application, you will be having SRC and all. In
SRC,
that sense,
source code.
yeah, source
I mean,
code,
source code is the business layer or
main,
what?
main, SRC main and all.
Mhm.
As someone was pointing, those all are encapsulated as a one. I mean, the single one.
I don't
See,
think it's
this is simple. Yeah, this is simple application. Here you are not finding any kind of layers. Just PHP file is written in, and you are accessing that page. No that much complications in this environment as of now. So those business layers and all you can expect in a professional way, like they are going to give the demo to the customer. So they want to show what more we have done. So that I think it's in that way.
See, meaning physically you don't see those layers, okay? Business layer is not something which you see in your source code or what a DevOps person have to do with it. You read the architecture once again, okay? Wherever you are reading these concepts, read and understand them thoroughly, and then I think you will have more clarity on it. Then you come back with your question.
Yeah, ma'am, sure.
All right, then that's all for today. We'll take up from here on Monday. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day and happy weekend. Thank you all.